whether it's education, we have entrepreneurship, small business, history, and entertainment. Before we do that, we're gonna have Barack Obama, Serena Williams, and Oprah Winfrey. You can be escorted to the left. They'll be heading over to room 12. I want to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Mr. Angelo Haygood. Mr. Angelo T. Haygood is Deputy Division Chief, Operations Air Force Recruiting Services of Randolph Air Force Base, Texas, in which he guides and leads 50 military civilians in 4 branches and provides operational guidance to 3 groups, 28 squadrons, and 1 detachment with 2,500 personnel worldwide. He formulates and executes all policies and procedures required to direct all Air Force officers and enlisted recruitment efforts, leading to the assessment of over 33,000 new airmen. He is a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, former KC-135 instructor navigator with experience as a wing standardization and evaluation navigator. He flew numerous combat missions during Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. He was chief of European Tanker Task Forces. The United Kingdom provided air refueling support for various operations, provided comfort, and Somalian relief missions for all of these missions. His educational background: 1983, was a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Mathematics from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, Greensboro, North Carolina. 1994 is a master's degree in Aeronautical Science from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Dayton Beach, Florida. I introduce to you Mr. Angelo T. Haygood.
Thank you all for this opportunity. I'm going to kind of take the opportunity to highlight, along with my story, one of the greatest Americans ever born, and hopefully you'll enjoy this talk because it is Black History Month today. Booker T. Washington was one of the greatest Americans of our time. He started life as a slave, but became one of the most influential people of his time, influencing educators, industry leaders, and even President of the United States. Booker T. Washington's dream was to get as much education as possible, but his purpose was to help Blacks to see the potential America made available to all for a full life, even during a time of violent segregation and limited opportunities. Booker T. Washington's dream started out personally, became a reality when he walked 500 miles to attend Hampton High School and later became an elementary school teacher there. But he had a much larger role to play. He was provided an opportunity to head a new school in Tuskegee, Alabama for the training and teaching of Black teachers, farmers, and skilled workers. Like Washington, my dream started out very personal. In high school, my desire was to move out from under my parents. As a matter of fact, I wanted to move out and as far away as I could from them in my small town of Ossining, New York. I wanted to travel and see the world, and the only way I believe I could do this was through the military. The military would get me away from my parents, away from New York, and allow me to travel and see the world. So I decided to join the U.S. Marine Corps later on this. Booker T. Washington excuse me. Booker T. Washington did not receive his success on his own. He had many helps and influences. First was his mother, who worked hard to support her family, who encouraged him to do better for himself. Next, it was the many neighbors and individuals who assisted him on his 500-mile travel to Hampton. Also was the school, who gave him a job as a janitor in order to support himself as he completed his secondary education and later college. Lastly was General Samuel C. Armstrong, who gave him the opportunity to head the new school, Tuskegee Institute. For me, it was the example of my father's hard work and desire to support his family that led him to hold 3 jobs at one time during the auto workers strike. It was family and adult neighbors who encouraged me to look beyond myself. Lastly was my high school counselor, Mr. Owen, who saw great potential in me and encouraged me to consider the Air Force and to go to college, while still maintaining my dream of traveling the world. Like Booker T. Washington, I was unaware of the many lives I would touch and influence after pursuing my personal dream. Even today, now assisting over 30,000 individuals every year to begin a great career in the Air Force, while helping the Air Force to maintain defense of the United States. But most importantly, my greatest contribution is to the many men and women both my wife and I help through God's power to become a part of God's family and encouraged to grow and to become influencers themselves in the kingdom of God. During his time, Booker T. Washington saw limited opportunities for blacks to obtain an education and have a job success in the South. He had to overcome many threats to his life and legacy. The post-slavery South was violent towards many blacks who challenged the social norms of majority whites. In addition, he also had to overcome detractors within the black community. Mr. Washington's ability to recognize his environment and to find common ground to aid in the advancement of his goals of full acceptance and progress of blacks led to many improvements for blacks during the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. In the U.S. Air Force, I first saw myself as primarily an officer, not just a black officer. While there were many times throughout my career many people mistook me as enlisted, I didn't allow their ignorance to impede my progress. You see, it was rare to see a black person as a flying officer in the Air Force at that time. During my first assignment out of a squadron of over 70 people, only 4 of us were black. I believe that my purpose was to help educate others that Air Force pilots and navigators come in different colors, and to be an example of excellence in all that I do. So in helping me to overcome obstacles, God placed in my life a great mentor, then Major Walter Watson, now retired colonel. He was the first and only black officer to fly one of the most sophisticated aircraft ever built for the Air Force, the SR-71. I also received guidance from other senior officers, black, white, and female, who saw potential in me and offered assistance. Ultimately, I trusted God to care for me and my family. Every time I felt my career or my marriage was at an end, or I wanted to give up, God sent the right person at the right time to encourage and lift me up and move me forward. Aside from my wife, who was a great helpmeet and influence, my father-in-law, Dr. James E. Thompson, provided constant encouragement, wisdom, and spiritual guidance when I needed and even when I didn't want it. One common theme that runs through the black experience in America is the constant reliance on God's providence. It is a trust and reliance in God that made a difference in the lives of many we honor this month. It is my trust and reliance on God that has allowed me to be where I am today. It is trusting and honoring God that will allow all of us to achieve in the future. And it's like to read Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank you, Mr. Haygood. Next up, we have Mrs. Stacy Taylor. Stacy Taylor is originally from Deerfield Beach, Florida, and currently is employed at the she's employed as a business intelligence developer at the Whataburger corporate office in San Antonio. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematical Sciences at Florida A&M University and a master's degree in Information Sciences at North Carolina Central University. She is currently a certified report developer for MicroStrategy, for the MicroStrategy reporting tool. Stacy is also an active member of the Dellcrest Church of Christ. Her hope is to be an inspiration to our youth. She hopes to show them that with God's help, they can accomplish anything regardless of their situation. So now I present Ms. Stacy Taylor.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. I kind of expected the kids to be in here. That was kind of the point I thought to have a career day. So I was tasked to answer 3 questions. And the first one is, when did your dreams become reality? And I don't know that I can say that all of my dreams have fully become a reality. I think my dreams evolve. The more I'm involved at work, the more I'm involved at church, I think my dreams change a little bit. And so even at the age that I am, I don't know that I've fully evolved at this point. Who helped me along the way? My mother was a strong influence in my life. She didn't have a lot of the opportunities that my brothers and I had, and so she pushed us, but she couldn't necessarily offer all of the advice that we needed at the time, so God placed other people in our lives. She had friends who were educators, who were principals, and they provided a lot of the steering and advice that we needed to go forward. There were a lot of things that I did that I never thought that I would do as a teenager. And so I was able to go to Florida A&M in the summer and kind of experience some programs there, and then I realized that was a place that I needed to attend. And so God consistently placed people, whether it was a coach or a teacher or just friends of the family, he consistently helped us with people in our lives. How did I overcome obstacles? Prayer and more prayer. I prayed a lot, especially through school. Growing up, we went from a 2-parent household to a single parent struggling, and so we had to adjust. And so there was a lot of prayer, a lot of people praying for my brothers and I to become successful in this life. So prayer, study, I studied a lot of tears. So those were the ways that I was able to overcome a lot of the obstacles. So, Whataburger currently has 718 restaurants and 112 franchises. The restaurants are located in the 10 states of Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And as of right now, since we've been bought, the plan is to expand across the United States. Then the next, pretty fast, actually, so the next few years. Our first restaurant was in Corpus Christi, and it was started August 8th, 1950. So, I heard Brother Riley say, I'm a business intelligence developer. Most people have no clue what that is. Don't know that I would have known the title if I didn't have it. So, but my special skills that I needed were math and computers. Does anybody know what a business intelligence developer is? Nobody? Not even my husband raised his hand. Yes, baby. Oh, okay. So my educational requirements are basically a college degree. As was said before, I received my Bachelor of Science in Mathematical Sciences at Florida A&M, and then my Master's of Information Science at North Carolina Central University. So, a business intelligence developer at Whataburger, we basically take the data that we receive and we load the data into our system, and then we create reports off of that data. And so we have regular reports that talk about financials, so basically how much money they made, how much money they spent on labor, food, all that, just a plethora of things. We have reports based on the land that we bought, how much we bought it for, what it's taking to build on that land. Just several reports that we handle. And we use a tool called MicroStrategy, and basically this is a sample report of what we created. And so it's what you would call an interactive dashboard. And so you would click on stuff, the map at the bottom changes, you do a drop down, the graphs change. And so these allow our upper level management to see how the restaurants are doing at a quick glance. So they don't have to look through a whole lot of numbers and all of that. It's in one place, and we could change the time period, we could change the area that we're looking at, that we're divided by zones, so we can look at each zone and see how everybody's doing. And then there are pushes to make sure, and protocols put in place to make sure that the restaurants are successful. And if they aren't, then we kick in and do some extra with those restaurants. There are ways that Whataburger also gives back. We have Christmas parties for the children in the shelters every year. We provide scholarships for employees and children of employees. So if any child that gets older wants to work at a Whataburger restaurant, that gives them the opportunity to get money to go to school. Whataburger is a wonderful place to work, so if you want to try to get some scholarship money later on, that would probably be a good place to work, just based on the money that they give out. We as employees volunteer, we deliver Meals on Wheels. Every day is covered during our lunch hours, and then we have an additional lunch hour. So basically there's a time frame that we deliver meals during the day. We do walks for Down syndrome and different heart disease. We volunteer at different organizations. So those are the things that we as employees can give back to the community. But we also do some pretty cool things. We have our company picnics. We usually have it at either a theme park, ranch, or somewhere. We have our Orange Spirit Day, where it's celebrating the anniversary of Whataburger. We decorate and compete between departments. We also now have Spirit Week, where we go out and actually volunteer every day of the week to assist in the community some type of way. We as employees have a Christmas party where there's award ceremony given to those who have excelled throughout the year. Ice cream parties, food trucks, all that we have, the company provides to us as employees. And our last thing that we did was a Super Bowl tailgate party. So not only do we work hard, they also give us the opportunity to interact with one another, get to know one another, and kind of have some downtime so that it's really not a stressful environment to work in. So I truly appreciate, because I've come from some very stressful environments. So this is very different and a breath of fresh air for me. So anybody have any questions? I'll say the kids, but anybody have any questions? What? Yes. What?
Like, you want to like do another career, but like you don't have the money for a scholarship. Like, can you work there to get money for like the other job you want?
So Whataburger has different different departments for the company. So we have accounting, marketing. When you see Whataburger tweeting and all that, we have a department that handles that. So the scholarships are not just specifically for my job. It's just for you to go to school, and as an employee, they award you with that. But you have to maintain a 2.0 GPA, which I think everybody can do, and just apply. Anybody else?
One more question.
Mhm.
How do you get a Whataburger job? I knew everyone was going.
We'll start him off early.
You apply online at whataburger.com, and you can go out there and look and see what jobs they have and apply.
What's the starting age you can work at Whataburger?
Jack in the Box? Is that what you're about to say? What? Blasphemy? 16. Anybody else? That's it? We're good? Okay, yes. Mhm.
Does it cost anything
What? Does what
to
cost?
do this?
And she's talking about her job.
Yes, does it cost for a job?
No, they pay me. And pretty good, I might say. So,
Don't y'all believe that. Don't-
that's it? Okay, kids, I have something for you. I'll give that out when it's over. All right, thank you. Not a problem.
I want to thank Ms. Taylor for that excellent speech. Again, we have a lot of educated people in the congregation here. She's a member, Brother Haygood's a member, and in the community. So we just thank everybody that's taking their time, and we're making adjustments as we go. We had a little setup where we were going to do escorting each out to go see the displays over here to the left, room 12, and then go to the back. There's food here in the back, but we're going to wait till the end. That way give everybody an opportunity to hear the speeches. I know that everybody wants to hear the speeches. Our next recital will be Autumn. She'll be doing Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou, author of 7 autobiographies and several essays that focus on racism, identity, family, and travel. Angelou, 1928 to 2014, made literary history by writing the first African-American nonfiction bestseller with her 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Kids Bird Sings. Her poetry collection, Just Give Me a Cold Drink of Water Before I Die, was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in 1971. Throughout her career, she received several honors, including NAACP Image Awards.
You know, when I was that age, I wouldn't get up before people like that. That takes courage right there. A lot of confidence. All right. Now we have Maya Aywood, and she's going to be doing Muhammad Ali.
Arguably the greatest professional boxer of all time, Ali is the only athlete to become a three-time lineal heavyweight champion, winning the coveted title in 1964, 1974, and 1978. Nicknamed the greatest, the Olympic gold-winning pugilist, was named Sports Personality of the Century by the BBC, the greatest athlete of the 20th century by Sports Illustrated, and the greatest athlete of the 20th century by ESPN Sports Century.
Our next recital is Coretta Scott King from Marlena.
The civil rights leader who was the wife of Martin Luther King Jr. was at the forefront of the African American civil rights movement in the 1960s. Following her husband's assassination in 1968, King took the fight for racial equality forward and founded the King Center to make her husband's birthday a national holiday. Upon her death in 2006, she became the first African American to lie in the Georgia state capitol.
All right. We now have our next career speaker. It is Dr. Mordecai I. Brownlee, who currently serves as the Vice President for Student Services at St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas. In addition, he serves as an adjunct faculty member in the School of Business and Leadership at the University of Charleston and the Masters in Community College Leadership Program at Morgan State University. Previously, Dr. Mordecai served as the Dean of Students and Chief Student Affairs Officer at the University of Charleston. He received his doctorate in educational leadership from Lamar University, where he earned the Outstanding Doctoral Student Award for his research regarding Texas House Bill No. 5 and the future of higher education. Mordecai also holds an MS in Human Resource Management and a BA in Mass Communication and Political Science degrees from Houston Baptist University and his AA in Liberal Arts degree from Kingwood College. Dr. Mordecai currently resides in San Antonio, Texas, with his wife of 13 years, Delphine Brownlee, their son Mordecai Jr., and their daughter Lauren Michelle. Dr. Mordecai.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. When I saw the children heading out the first time and I saw that they were going to room 12, and then I read what was in room 12, heading to black-eyed peas and collard greens and turkey necks, I wanted to follow the children, amen? And so now that the children are back, perhaps we'll all head there together. But very excited to be here on today. Bring you greetings on behalf of Dr. Adina Williams-Lawson, who serves as the president of St. Philip's College. And I see that we also have some of our St. Philip's College history and in terms of family lineage here. St. Valden's family, one of her family members. So very glad to see you on today. With that said, I received the same prompts as well in terms of being able to speak on today in regards to when did the dream become a reality, as well as who helped me along the way and some of the obstacles that I had to face. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio, And my mother is from a little small country town that some of you all may have heard of called Needville, Texas, which is past Sugar Land, past Rosenberg, Richmond, down off of 36. And so that's what essentially brought us back to Texas many, many years ago. I was raised by a single mother who was a school teacher. Fast forward, I remember I was preparing to head into to college. My mother was very, very sick at that particular time, and so I had some decisions I decided to make, and that was to remain local and to go to the local community college, which I have to be very honest with you all. When I talked about the community college being an option, the stigma associated with going to a community college became very prevalent, and folks began to have the conversation, oh, baby, you sure you don't, we can get you somewhere else, and so began to have the conversation of, well, this is going to be the best option for me, and made the most sense, and made my way to community college. One of the realities that I had to deal with was testing at developmental levels. Tested at developmental level for mathematics, and English I was okay. And then on top of that, once I enrolled in my classes, I have to be very honest with you all, as hard as I tried, I failed my developmental classes. And so at that particular time, having to have the conversation with myself about, is college ready for me, and should I be doing something else, and perhaps being a little bit more productive with my time, and students, kids, I'll be honest with you, I was just thinking about dropping a mixtape, okay? At that point, I just was ready to just kind of try my hand at something else and see what else God had for me, okay? But if it wasn't for my church home, if it wasn't for family members, if it wasn't for the folks at the college that said, listen, there's some realities that you need to understand, and one of those realities is standardized testing, and realizing that standardized testing doesn't speak to truly your abilities and who you are and who you're going to become. And now let's talk about what we're going to do to overcome these things. I'm grateful that the light bulb went off, and so when I think about when did the dream become a reality, well, I have to be very honest with you all and very transparent. I'm a vice president of a college now, but being a vice president of a college was not in my trajectory. At that particular time, I think pop culture was at an all-time high, and we had P. Diddy dancing across the stage. I could say P. Diddy in the church house. Is that all right? Okay, and then, it was Biggie Smalls, and it was all those things, and the Tupacs. And so in terms of thinking about sustainability and how I wanted to provide for my family, the images that I was exposed to on the television simply were either I'm running a ball down the field or I'm entertaining someone. The other realities and anything in the middle of that just wasn't necessarily exposed to us. So if there's anything that I would encourage you all today, as you've heard the previous speakers this morning or this afternoon, and those that you will hear afterwards, is realizing there's so many different ways that you can allow God to use you. And you don't necessarily see those images on the television screen. I think that's the importance of what we have as church family, as community members, to expose our children to as many facets of life and opportunities as possible, because those things won't be on Instagram, they won't be on Twitter, they won't be on Facebook, you understand? And so, again, going to the dream becoming a reality, I think the starter for me was realizing that I had the power all along. And I think that all of us in our own respective manners, it's as they say, the battle is in the mind. And when I realized that it was no longer about fighting to become something, realizing that I already was, and I've just got to now move into what God has for me, that's when the reality became, and I realized it wasn't about a dream, it was just more about a pathway and what steps I should take along that path. And so that kind of takes me then into the second point being who helped me. Of course, a mother. We dealt with our own realities. We dealt with our own issues of pride, but the reality is, and I'll be transparent because my story may help somebody on the day, we dealt with the housing insecurity. What that means is not necessarily mean that you don't have a place to live, but our reality was we were having to rent a room from somebody, okay? And it wasn't necessarily about not having food. We dealt with food insecurities because there were times I just say I was eating, but my mother wasn't, you understand? And so those are part of our realities, and making sure that my mother made sure that we made it and realized that she was spending that time investing in me because she understood not only what it was that I had to become for the family, but understanding that I came from a line of other men that just, I hate to say it, but dropped the ball. And so as I have a son now who's 5 years old, and I have a little girl who's 2 years old, my wife, who I met at community college, by the way, And just for the record, I was not looking for my wife at community college, but as I tell folks, my game was just that tight. Amen? Amen. 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 So just understanding, essentially now, we're now fighting this fight not only for the folks looking at us in the mirror, but for those that come behind us. And not to judge those that came behind us, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where we are today, amen? And so not looking at that as being the focus, but I would encourage you all to remain encouraged. Have fun for those that need to just focus on having fun and focusing where you can, but for those that are beginning to think about, as I look at our youth group there, beginning to think about what does that possibility look for me, there are folks that are in your corner that want to see you make it. It's very important to surround yourself with people who want to see you make it. Because sometimes sharing our dreams and sharing our thoughts, if you share that with the wrong person, they have a way of breaking your spirit, you know? And to say, I want to be the first this, or I want to be that, well, nobody in our family is that. Well, you don't know what God has for that child. And so it's so important that we then create the environment for them to thrive and to build on and to dream big, because somebody probably squashed our dreams at some point in time. Amen. So we all have that. So the reality of realizing that the dream was always real, it was up for me to do my part because I could do all things through Christ. The second thing being in regards to those who helped me, of course, my mother, my church family, and just understanding how God favor works. If you do what you're supposed to do and you treat folks the way that they're supposed to be treated, it'll be amazing what God will do for you and the opportunities that will make themselves known and available. And so I'm grateful for those times of favor, because it carried me from community college on to other opportunities that I've been blessed to have. And last but not least, I believe the prompt is my apologies. Let me look at what that last prompt was. Overcoming obstacles. Overcoming obstacles. As I think about the obstacles that I had to overcome, I'll tell to the children and maybe listen up, especially the teenagers. Let me help y'all with something that maybe will help you out. It wasn't until my junior year in college that the studying light bulb for me went off. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Up until that point, I was taught when it's time to do your homework, you go to a quiet place, you sit in the corner, and you do your work. Here's the problem. Because of how God has wired me, that environment did not work for me. What I mean is when you put me in a quiet situation, I start to think about, did I leave the iron on? What's going to be on TV tonight? What do I need to do later on? Mama asked me to do something, and I still just can't remember what it was, right? And maybe seeing my friends tomorrow. Quiet environments do not work for me. It wasn't until my junior year in college that I began to work with a success counselor, and they said, let's begin to try some things and figure out what's going to work for you. And I want to encourage you, with your parents' help, to do the same. And let me tell you what I mean. I am now, even in my office, I have to work with music on. I am not someone that can work in a quiet environment. I was the kid that it really helped me when the TV was on and mama thought I was trying to watch television, but in reality, there's something about that background noise that just helps me focus. I don't know what that is. Even when it came time for me to write my dissertation, I wrote my dissertation in a Starbucks, one of the most noisiest places you can be. Something about the clanking and the hearing and the pounding and the this and the that, for whatever reason, worked for me. I have some students that when I was more in a residential environment, St. Philip's doesn't have a residential environment that had dorms, is the best way to describe it. And my athletes, my last school, we had 23 athletic teams. I would tell them, realize that you may not be able to study inside your room. For some folks, when you see your bed, you want to go to sleep, right? So to tell a child, well, you got to go to your room and study, and my bed is right there, all I want to do is lay down and go to sleep. Now, all of us in here are adults for the most part, and we know we can't do our work in the bedroom, but we still send our children to the bedroom to do their work. And so understanding that for some folks, you got to go outside, maybe the backyard, maybe the patio, maybe the porch. But changing your environment, as simple as that sounds, that it can make a huge difference. And the other thing I realized about myself is I'm an introvert thinker. When it came time to have to learn the dates and the A, B, C, or D's and what's the name of this person and they got ready for the test, flashcards helped, but I realized I'm not the person that can sit down for a whole hour and study. I'll give you a good 10 minutes, and then after that I need a break, right? And so I realized then that wasn't a bad thing, and I think it's so important that we figure out what works for our children, and then we begin to shape that learning experience for them. So I am an interval thinker. I'll take those flashcards, I will go over them for 10 minutes, and I'll reward myself with a 5-minute break. I played a video game. This is in college now. I got too many things to do now, but I would play the video game, or I would watch something on TV. Now here comes the discipline part. I got to turn that off and then go back and do another 10 minutes. And I would set a timer, and I would do that on and off. And next thing you know, I began to make the dean's list. I began to run these various scholarships and different things happen. Why? Because I finally figured out what worked for me. So with all that said, and making your dream a reality, and what are the obstacles that you have to overcome, as simple as it sounds, but it's as hard as it really is, sometimes we are our worst obstacle, because we put fear in the way of trying new things or dreaming big or figuring out what's going to work for us. And I'm here to tell y'all on today, God can do some amazing things if you're just willing to try. All right? So try. Realize we're here to support. Thank you all so much to this church for the opportunity. Ms. Bozeman, thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Mordecai. Now we have the Voices of Harmony going to give us a song, one selection, and then we'll introduce our next speaker.
Our selection is Down by the Riverside.
Down by. Down by. No more.
Study war no more. Study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more.
No more.
Study war no more. Study war no more.
All right, we'd like to thank them for that soul-stirring selection. Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Mrs. Barbara Rankins. She grew up in Somerville, Texas, surrounded by family and friends who loved her. Most of her adult years were spent here in San Antonio. Her daughter, Michelle, grew up at Dellcrest Church of Christ and went to college at Oklahoma Christian and returned many years later. Ms. Rankins worked at Dellcrest for many years as assistant counselor for youth, youth Bible class teacher, young ladies Bible class teacher, bereavement ministry, singles ministry, evangelism ministry, personal Bible study, Golden Agers, Southwest Fundraising Committee. Boy, she did a lot. Her career was with USAA as a claims adjuster, subrogation, and arbitration specialist, retiring after 30 years of service. Mary Kay is about God first, family second, career third. Started her business before retiring, but worked full-time after retiring and became a sales director for a few years and has continued as a consultant. And she's owned her own Mary Kay business for over 20 years. She likes to travel, she likes exercising, yoga, and word find. At this time, Ms. Barbara Wright.
Wow, I didn't realize I had lived so long. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be before you to speak a few words about being a black business owner. I want to give you just a little bit of information about the woman called Mary Kay. And this is a book called The Mary Kay Way by Mary Kay Ash. It's timeless principles from America's greatest woman entrepreneur. Mary Kay helped open the doors for countless women throughout the world to find success on their own and to be their own bosses. Anybody here want to be their own boss? Raise your hand. Oh, okay, wonderful. It explains her people-centered business philosophy and how to succeed by staying true to yourself, your values, and your customers. Mary Kay Ash was the founder and chairman of the Mary Kay Inc., one of the world's largest and most successful direct selling organizations. An academic study by Baylor University named her the greatest woman entrepreneur in American history. And the Wharton School of Business deemed her one of the most influential business leaders of modern times. Mary Kay passed away in 2001, and if any of you ever want to read this, it's a good manual. Just see me. Okay, who helped me along the way? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of history about how I got here. My niece, Sharon, many of you may know her. She invited me to a Mary Kay skincare class. But guess what? I didn't buy a thing, but I listened. I was listening to the business opportunity. Johnny Robertson was teaching the class. Some of you may know her. And she said, many people come into the Mary Kay business for many reasons, and the reason that got my attention was personal growth. Personal growth and making extra money. The funny thing about it was I was already working at USAA. I was an empty nester, but I had some time on my hands. And if you have too much time on your hands, sometimes you get in trouble. So I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I signed the agreement. She said, Mary Kay is about God first, family second, and career third. And if you do your life according to that pattern, it will work. Mary Kay is about enriching the lives of women. So I said, well, I'm already a Christian, so I do most of that anyway. So this must be a piece of cake. Well, not exactly. I always wanted to do something after my retiring from my regular job because it was pretty structured and rigid. I stayed in the office all the time. I want to get out and explore the world. So I did. I wanted to make money, but I wanted to have some fun. Okay? So one day, I was coming from seminar from Dallas, which is like a convention, and on my way home, I stopped to see my sister Celeste. I was excited about my experience, and she joined the company. I wasn't prepared for it, but I signed up anyway. It's amazing what enthusiasm will do. She became my team member and my customer. My sister Irene also became my customer. My daughter became my customer. My daughter Michelle became my customer and team member. And guess what? Some of you guys out here became my customers and team members. My church friends, it's amazing. The people that you know will support you. And you know what? The ones that don't even support you directly will give you referrals because they want you to succeed. It's amazing. Mary Kay said, leaders teach, they motivate, they care. Leaders make sure that the way to success is always broad enough and straight enough for others to follow. I was teachable, I learned, I listened to my director, and I listened to other millionaire directors all over the United States. I never thought in a million years this little kid from Somerville, Texas, would be rubbing shoulders with millionaires. Can you believe it? They taught us through workshops and seminars and weekly meetings, and I was taught by the best. And then I became a booking master. I was a master in booking, a master in selling. Of course, the product sold itself, but I helped. Okay, and I was a master in recruiting. I offered the opportunities to others. I stepped out of my comfort zone. You know, sometimes we just get too comfortable, don't we? You got to step out. So what I did was I would do affirmations, and this is one of them. I'm going to read it real quickly. I used to have a comfort zone where I could never fail. The same four walls and busy work were more like jail. I longed so much to do the things I'd never done before. I stayed behind my comfort zone and paced the same old floor. I said it didn't matter. I wasn't doing much. I said I didn't care for diamonds and such. I couldn't let my life go by just watching others win. I held my breath and stepped outside to let the change begin. I took a step, and with new strength I never felt before, I kissed my comfort zone goodbye and closed and locked that door. If you're in a comfort zone, afraid to venture out, young people, remember that all winners was at once filled with doubt. A step or two and words of praise can make your dream come true. Greet your future with a smile. Success is there for you. The obstacles that were before me, well, some of it was fear. I used to be a quiet person. Can you believe that? Very quiet, didn't say much. I got over that. I got over that by setting goals, short-term and long-term goals. And you know what else? I was rewarded for the things that I did. I got trophies and ribbons, like that. Trophies and ribbons, and little challenges and victories came. Mary Kay did not create a company for small thinkers. She wanted us to succeed. She gave us the tools to succeed. It's not a magic potion. You just can't blink and get it done. You got to work. But the secret, young people, are inside of you. Practice, practice, practice. Remember, learn the rules and practice. Well, I got good at practicing. I got my head in the game. I was in the zone. One day I was going to a nursing home because I did volunteer work. So I was running a little late. I said, well, okay, I can make it. Jumped in the car and I was going. And then I saw something alongside me. I said, oh, a little cop, he was about this tall. on a motorcycle. I said, did he drop out of the sky? I said, okay. So I pulled over, and he said, lady? I said, yes, sir. He says, where are you going? He said, I didn't want to write you a ticket. He said, but you were just going straight. You never looked in your mirror. I wiggled my bike, but you didn't even look in the rear view. I said, oh, okay. He says, where are you going? I said, sir, I'm going to do volunteer work at the nursing home. He said, volunteer? He said, are you a nurse? I said, no. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a Mary Kay consultant. I'm going to do facials on the patients. He said, lady, you are speeding to go to do some volunteer work? I said, yes. He said, give me your license and insurance card. I said, okay. So I went in my compartment, pulled out my insurance card, and I just fell out laughing. And he looked at me. I said, oops. I said, you're not going to believe this one either. And he said, lady, what's that? I said, my insurance card expired, and I retired. He said, your insurance card expired? I said, yeah, you're not going to believe something else. And he said, well, what's that? I retired from USAA with 30 years of service, and my insurance card is expired. He said, lady. I said, okay. He said, would you promise me one thing? I said, what is it? He said, if you promise me that you will slow down and go the speed limit the rest of the day, and you call your insurance company to get a new card, I won't give you a ticket. I said, I promise. He said, well, I'm going to give you a warning, but just remember to do what you promised. I said, I will. So I went to the nursing home. I did facials and hand treatment on the ladies. All this is free, volunteer. And guess what happened? The staff wanted to buy the product. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I remembered Mary Kay said, if you keep the dollar signs out of your eyes, do your job, the money will come. It's true, guys. That's my story. Okay, let's see what else. Mary Kay has a foundation, and it is about domestic violence, to help prevent domestic violence against women and children, and also research for cancers that affect women. And I think that's awesome. When did my dream come true? When did my dream become a reality? Well, it was a process. By booking, selling, and recruiting, my team developed, and my team grew. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work. My team and I worked hard. We became a unit, and I became a director of over 30 women that I had to train. I listened to my director. I did exactly what she says. I listened, I followed directions, and I learned the rules. I thank the people that helped me to become who I am today. I stepped out of my comfort zone. I did the work. It's not easy, but it's simple. I'm going to read an affirmation because Mary Kay believes in affirmation. When I was going through the directorship, I had an affirmation on my bathroom with a mirror, in the kitchen, on the refrigerator, all over the place. And I like to share one of my biggest affirmations. It's called, Make Me an Ambitious Consultant, Dear Lord. Make me an ambitious, hardworking consultant, dear Lord, one who has the determination and guts to stick with it when the going gets tough. One who sees potential in every situation and every person. One who becomes passionate and understanding and tough with love. One who runs like a thoroughbred, charges like a rhino, but is loyal like a soldier. Lord, help me, make me a consultant who has dreams and goals and visions of total success. And Lord, when you do, help me to meet the challenges and obstacles with ambition, consistency, motivation, enthusiasm, and excitement. Help me to maintain consistent in the goals that I set for myself and my family. And when I am in the valley, help me to keep my gaze on the mountaintop, knowing you are looking down on me. Strengthen me with your faith, dear Lord. Teach me the art of patience, and let me know with God all things are possible because I believe in you. Pick me up when I'm down and out. Give me strength when I'm weak. Push me when I need to be pushed, but slow me down when you think I'm going too fast. And as I nurture my belief in myself, help me to get up one more time when I stumble. And let me know, God, that you created me to be a winner. Therefore, I can never lose. And before long, I will be singing. Not only am I a child of an awesome God, but I am also the winner that you created me to be in your word. Amen and thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Rankin. Thank you very much. We have some more recitals. We have Lamaya Rose going to do Mary Jackson. We're going to try to go through a few extra recitals and try to speed the program up a little bit.
Mathematic and aerospace engineer. Jackson, 1921 to 2005, started off as a computer at West Area Computing Division before taking advanced engineering courses and becoming NASA's first black female engineer in 1958, serving as the Affirmative Action Program Manager and as the Federal Women's Program Manager in the Office of Equal Opportunity Programs. Jackson spearheaded the hiring and promotion of women in NASA's Science, Engineering, and Mathematics Division of the American Space Agency. In 2016, she was portrayed by actress Janelle Monáe in the Oscar-nominated film Hidden Figures, which told the story of how Jackson and her fellow African-American mathematics Dorothy Vaughan and Catherine Johnson contributed to the launch of astronaut John Glenn into orbit, providing a much-needed boost to America's position in the space race in the early 60s.
Thank you, Lamaya. Next, we'll have Nina. We'll do Nina Simon. We'll have Malene. We'll come up and do Malene. Nina Simon. Miss Malene. Come on up. Nina Simone? Okay. Come on up. And she'll be doing Nina Simone.
Nina Simone's voice is synonymous with the voice of the civil rights movement in the U.S. She openly addressed the issue of racial discrimination faced by African Americans in such songs as Mississippi, I won't say that word, Why the King of Love is Dead, and Young, Gifted, and Black. She regularly performed and participated in civil rights meetings, including the Selma and Montgomery marches. She left the U.S. and in the 1970s in protest at racial injustice and finally settled in France.
Okay, next was Thurgood Marshall, a Christian. Okay, next will be James Baldwin with John. Not here? Okay. Rosa Parks, Takara. Okay. How about Jackie Robinson? Brandon? Okay. Moving forward.
Robinson, 1919 through 1972, was a professional baseball second baseman with a decade-long career. In 1947, he became the first African American to play in Major League Baseball, MLB, in the modern era when he was signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers. In 1949, he was awarded in National League Most Valuable Player, making him the first black player to receive his honor. He also helped the Dodgers to win the 1955 World Series championship. Robinson was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962. He was not only a distinguished player, but also a vocal civil rights activist.
All right. Our next career speaker, Mr. Eddie Chapman. Eddie Chapman was born and raised in San Antonio. He is a product of the San Antonio Independent School District, graduating from Highlands High School in 1976. Following high school, Eddie attended Mountain Cedar College, currently Mountain View College, a part of the Dallas County Community College District, seeking an education in real estate. As a young working student, he was intrigued by the operation of the fast food industry, chicken to be exact. Working with a manager who also served as a mentor, Eddie was afforded an opportunity to learn and grow in a business that was founded and started in downtown San Antonio in 1952. Following words from his mother, view the job not by what you earn, but what you can learn. Eddie decided to forego a possible career in real estate in favor of a bird in the hand. He continued to learn every facet of the business while making investments toward achieving his dream, which established on April 5th, 2002, when he opened Chapman's Chicken, located at 1747 South W.W. White Road. Although profit is a real bottom line concern, Chapman's business model is dedicated to serve and help uplift the community. He is a member of the East Side Crime Prevention Coalition, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and other organizations in need of assistance, or a speaker on the topics of keys to business success or the importance of education. At this time, I'll present to you Mr. Eddie Chapman.
Good afternoon. First of all, I give honor and praises to my Heavenly Father that I already knew that when the foundation of the world was put together, we would be here this day. Now, I want to turn around and talk about exactly what got me here. Chapman Chicken was opened up April 5th, 2002. Now, I'm going to tell you about the journey it took to get me here. Now, true, my mother told me that when you're talking about, when you want to grow in business, look about everything you can learn and not what you can earn. I'm going to prove that right now. First of all, when I started working at fast food, I was making, believe it or not, $2.65 an hour. Yes, trust me, $2.65 an hour was it. But I was just so glad to have a job. I didn't base it on how much I was making. Now, when I first went in, all I knew was I wanted to be the best. It had nothing to do with how much I was earning. To this day, I still don't wear a watch because I do not judge the job by what time I get off, but I cannot leave until the job is done. Now, I had a gentleman that worked with me, was a manager. His name was Barney Martinspini. Barney took me under his wing, taught me everything. He brought me in his office one day, and he said, Eddie, you have the potential to be something great. I will teach you everything you want to learn until your actions dictate you no longer want to learn. I said, Barney, I want to learn everything. So let me tell you something. I would go to work early and leave late. I do the best I can with what I had to work with. And I even got some of my friends to come work at Church of Chicken also. Now, my biggest downfall was I was so close to my friends that when we got off, we enjoyed each other's company. But my closest friend, I would get to work early. He would get to work late. I do the best I could. He did whatever he wanted to. Let me make sure you understand something. Average things happen to average people. You will get an average house. You will drive an average vehicle. You'll have an average life. But you need to understand something. Above average changes all focus. Now, while I would always come to work early, my friend would come to work late. 2 months after I started, I became a team leader. A month and a half after that, I became a second assistant. Barney called me in his office and said, you know what, Eddie, I'm going to make a man out of you today. And I said, Barney, how do you plan on doing that? He said, Charles has been coming to work late, and he even came to work late today. We're going to terminate him, and you're going to do it. And my mouth hit the ground because Charles was my closest friend. He said, when you terminate him, you're going to stand outside my office, and I'm going to listen to every word you say. And if you tell him I told you to fire him, I'm going to fire you. I called him right outside Barney's office. Barney was sitting down, acting like he was writing. And with tears in my eyes, I said, you've been coming to work late, and you even came to work late this morning. He said, so what are you trying to say? I said, I got to let you go. He said, man, your job has gone to your head. He said, Barney. Barney got up. He came. He said, what's wrong, Eddie? He said, you need to talk to Eddie. He said, why? He said, he's trying to fire me. He said, well, why is he trying to fire you? He's trying to fire me for coming to work late. He said, well, you did come to work late this morning. You have been written up. He said, tell him he can't do that. Barney looked at him and looked at me, looked at him and looked at me. He said, well, if that's what Eddie wanted to do. My mouth hit the floor. I could not believe he did that to me. When he left, Barney pulled me over to the side. He said, Eddie, I need to make sure you understand something. Nothing is more important than your God and your family. Now, I saw the way y'all hang out, and if I didn't change, he would change you. It turned out to be the greatest lesson he taught me. Now, because of him, I'm successful to this day. I'm going to prove it. Why? Because I did not judge the job by how much I made. All I wanted to do was be the best. Let me tell you what happened. I got transferred to Dallas. There was a store doing $18,000 a year. I came as assistant. We got the store to doing $21,000 a week. It was doing, I'm sorry, not $18,000 a year. It was doing $18,000 a week. We got the store doing $21,000 a month. The store turned into $1 million store. Then they offered me my own restaurant. The restaurant they offered me was running $13,000 a week. Watch this. Because of my work ethic, I bought that store to doing $20,000 a week. It turned out to be $1 million a year. I was the youngest manager in the $1 Million Club. I stayed in that club for 3 years. Now, I was 24 years old. At 24 years old, at Church of Chicken, I was making $44,000 a year. At 36, I was making 75. All I was doing was selling chicken. All I did was know, in order for me to be the best, I had to be the best. Why? Because when you're the best, the company will pay you to keep you. And that's exactly what happened. The problem was, I was good at mathematics. I was running them $1 million a year, but they were only paying me 44. That didn't add up. So upon doing that, I left churches, went to another company. That gentleman gave me a store doing $13,000 a week. Let me tell you what happened. He started paying me what churches was paying me. In 3 months, I increased the sales by I increased the sales where we started running $15,000 a week. I also, before I left churches, I have a plaque that hangs on my wall. I increased the sales at Church of Chicken at that one restaurant by $154,000 in 1 year's time. Now, when I went to the other gentleman's company, and sales started getting up, when it got to $15,000 a week, I went there and I renegotiated my contract. I said, I tell you what, I would like my sales to be tied in, my check to be tied into the sales. So he said, what does that mean? I said, well, when you make more, I make more. When you make less, I make less. That way it's beneficial to the both of us. He said he could do that. So after we did that, the store started running $17,000 a week. He said, I never thought this store could do this. I said, yes, but too bad you're holding me back. He said, what is it I can do? I said, if I could get another stove. It took about a month to put another stove, and we started running 18.5. And he was elated. Why? Because his highest volume store is running $19,000 a week. When I met his highest volume managers, I told them, we're going to catch up and pass you. He couldn't believe it. After he found out that his sales was not going to change more than $18.5 a week, he was elated. He said, I truly cannot believe this. And I said, too bad you're holding me back. He said, what must I do? I said, if you can give me another register. Let me tell you, because my check was tied into the sales. When I left the store, it was running $20,000 a week. I turned it to $1 million store. I turned around, and when I left the company, I was making $75,000 a year. All because, first of all, it had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with wanting to be the best at what I did do. Now, on my way, on my journey, first of all, I had the greatest employees. I ran $1 million store with 2 high school girls that made more than their teachers. And I told them that when your grades dropped, I would terminate you. Why? Because education is the key. Without education, you stud your growth. And I cannot have anybody work for me that understand they need to grow always. Now, people can say, well, you're just a small chicken restaurant. Let me tell you something about this small chicken restaurant. Yes, I do work with, what was that? I was a mentor. I was what we call littles in, I forgot the term, what was that? Not Boys Club, but being a male mentor, helping males grow. Not Boy Scouts, but Big Brothers and Big Sisters, there it is. I took my mentor everywhere I went so he could grow and learn like me. And some people say, well, what can a chicken restaurant do to help our kids? Let me tell you something. When I sit down and do an interview, if your pants hang, you can't talk to me. If I see an earring, I expect to smell perfume. That's the way I was. Whenever somebody came in to sit down and talk to me about business, I would purposely make them wait. Why? because I'm trying to measure your patience. If you're not patient waiting on a job that can change your future, you will not be patient when you get the job. I had a gentleman waiting 20 minutes to talk to me. And when he caught up, he said, how long is he going to be? The cashier said, you can go home. He said, why? He haven't talked to me yet. He does that to see if he could see how you're going to act, waiting on him to come offer you a chance to work for him. And by the way, as you grow, whatever you do, don't use the idea that because of where you at, there is no future. You can never be further from the truth. I had a young assistant manager to work for me. In high school, again, we run $1 million store. When he got ready to graduate, I asked him, I said, what do you want to be when you graduate? He said, I plan on going to college. Well, he said, I would like to go to college. I said, why don't you? He said, well, you know my situation. His mother and his father, one was on drugs and one other was alcoholic. I said, whatever you do, don't let that keep you from growing. Why don't you just go and fill out the paperwork? He went, filled out the paperwork, and he got accepted. He said, but I got accepted, but what can I ask? What can I do? I said, go ahead and pack. You never know what the future holds. So he packed his bag. He was doing school 2 weeks later. I said, what I'll do is I'll give you your 2 checks up front so you won't have to worry about trying to come back to get them. I gave him his check. He looked at his check. He said, Mr. Chapman, you gave me the wrong check. I said, no, I didn't. He said, this is too much. I said, I'm investing in your future. He couldn't believe it. He went off. 3 months after he was gone, he called me up. He said, how y'all doing? I said, everything here is going great. How are you doing? He said, everything's going great, but my funds are getting low. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you come here, sub for me, because I feel like taking off this weekend, and we'll grow from there. He came, did the same time. I did the same time 2 times. I gave him more than he was expecting twice. One day my phone rang, and it was from the home office in the school he was going to school at. They called and told me they were going to a band competition. He told some people about me, and they wanted to meet me. They asked me, could I feed their students? 3 bus loads of Greyhound students pulled up at my restaurant so I could feed them. So that which I gave became a benefit. Now let me tell you about the gentleman. He became the drum major for Grambling. He led the band on the field for the competitions. Let me tell you what my investment proved out. He turned around and became the band director at the same school he graduated from. It works. I have an unlimited amount of stories from people that came to work for me that I would not let them leave without sewing something into them. If you came by my restaurant, right at maybe a month and a half ago, the only reason my restaurant was closed because I and my wife went on vacation. While we were on vacation, every employee that worked for me got a vacation check. So I paid them for being off. The students that work for me, when they go to school, they have to bring me their grade slips. If they are not passing, I will turn around and take them off my schedule and let them only work weekends until they bring their grades up. I tell their parents, when they get big at home because they're making money, just let me know and I'll whip them in the pocketbook. Because of that, I have the greatest employees. At times they mess up, but let me tell you something. I hold their feet to the fire, and at times I go check on them in their own schools. I check on them when their own parents forget that they're around, because we are community driven. There are a lot of things I do in the community. I ask people and I tell them, if you tell someone I did this, I'll never do it again. Why? Because our young kids do not understand. They are our future. No matter where you are, you can grow. It has nothing to do with how you grow up. My mother, thank God for her. I tell people I earned every whipping she gave me. I earned it. But the greatest thing she did was she introduced me to a long strap, 36 inches long, 2 inches in width. It was a razor strap. But it wasn't the razor strap that got my attention. It was what she called the razor strap. When I got Rome, she said, "Go get me God." And I said, "Mama, anything but God." She should have been a psychology major, because to this day, I fear God at every chance. Now, going back to business, whenever I speak on business, I tell everyone, if you want to go into business, read Proverbs. Why? Because not only will Proverbs tell you who you are, it will also tell you who you can be. I tell people, after you finish reading Proverbs, read it again to make sure you understand what is expected of you. I am here today because of a parent that loved me, a person that sowed into me. And before anyone can say, well, he didn't have no other options. Let me tell you what I did. I told my mother I wanted to become an electrical engineer. I was going to go into the Air Force. The gentleman that came to my recruiter, when I told him I wanted to become an electrical engineer, he said, in order for you to be that, you had to make a 95 on the test. I said, okay. I went on. He came and got me out of school one day, and this is what he said. He looked at me and said, you made it. I said, what did I make? He said, you made the 95. The only reason I didn't go into the Air Force was because I worked with someone that gave me a father figure that I didn't want to leave. And to this day, I am successful because of that which he sowed into me. I always, whenever I'm asked to speak, I always make sure the young kids understand not only what is exactly expected of them, but where they can grow. Now, if you work at being the best, you will never have a job. You'd always have an adventure. But I always tell people, you must understand something, and that is, there are two types of millionaires. You must make sure you understand this. There are two types of millionaires. The first is the one that knows they're a millionaire. The second is, through fear, the one that don't think they're a millionaire. Let me tell you something. Right now, I sit back and I look, and what I see is, in young kids, in older individuals, there's no doubt in my mind that some of them may possess the next greatest thing. But through fear and intimidation, they may never know it. We must push our young kids to achieve great heights, heights that are further along than where we ever made it. Why? I've got 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. And I've told them they will be successful. And by the grace of God, they are. And they said, what makes you think we're going to be successful? Because you've seen me go to work, broke, tired, busted, and disgusted. But because I had a family that I had to take care of, I've never gave up. God has blessed me with a wife that stands by my side, listens to my fears, listens to my dreams, and reminds me that because God is in the mix, everything is possible. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to thank Mr. Chapman for that wonderful talk. Next up, we have Mr. Hoyt Andrews, Jr. Mr. Andrews is a native San Antonian who served in the United States Air Force for 25 distinguished years, with military assignments in the U.S. and in the foreign countries of Japan, Korea, and Germany. Mr. Andrews retired with numerous honors. Mr. Andrews is a widower, has 2 adult children and several grandchildren, has served as educational director at Dellcrest Church of Christ. He actively participates in local civic and community activities, as well as speaking to local schools and churches about the historic significance of the Buffalo Soldiers and the key roles the soldiers played in American history. Today, Mr. Andrews comes to us representing the 9th Cavalry San Antonio Buffalo Soldiers, where he holds the rank of Quartermaster Sergeant with the local association. Mr. Andrews.
I'd like to, first of all, thank all the speakers who spoke before me. We appreciate their information that they shared with us. And I shall not bore you very long. I'm going to try to work within the time schedule that was given me. But I do want to state some important facts about my life, the career of people that I know has made my life what it is. And I've been around for a while, a few days. I have seen quite a few moons, and I can appreciate God for that. And I appreciate you for being here to listen. So time is well spent. I will go into what I was called to do, and I will do that in an expeditionary way. I'd like to, first of all, begin with the organization by which I represent, this uniform represent. As was said in my bio, I was in the Air Force. I did not really earn the privilege or all the things that men went through to wear this uniform. But I wear it proudly, and I'll state some of the reasons why, and then I'll take my seat. I want to take you back in the time capsule a little bit, so just sort of get into the capsule. Go back in the 18th century. Can y'all do that? You can. All right. I'm going to take you back there. All right. So shortly after, this is beginning about 1862. Ladies didn't wear the garb you're wearing today. They wore something a little bit different. And also, the things that we see in communications and our mode of transportation was not quite the same. As a matter of fact, one of the very primary modes of transportation was horseback. I don't know if any of you can ride horses or not, but they got some horses, I understand, outside today. So if you've never ridden a horse, you probably can go out today and get an opportunity to ride a horse. It's not the kind of vehicle that you can put your foot on the brake and stop. You have to use discretion with this mode of transportation. But as we go back into time, let me just say that one of the things that this country faced in the 1800s, 1863, there was this thing of segregation and slavery and punitive. There was just not a good time for people if your skin was black. It was not a good time. But we lived through that. We passed through that time, and we find that some of the events I'll mention that led up to where we are right now. President Lincoln was, at that time, was president, and he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which was to free all of the slaves. Now, some of these, some of our people were not so pleased with that. And so there was a resistance. And this resistance led to the Civil War. And it was a very difficult time in our nation because there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of discontentment and fighting and just devastation, if you will. And so as a result of this, the resistance was basically because the South pretty much was the breadbasket. All of the food that people received was getting came from the South. They grew it, and they would ship it to other places, and other folk lived off of the South industry. And so you can understand that those who were slave owners and who had this production did not want to free the slaves because that was their industry. And they grew the crops, and they grew the vegetables. They grew all the things that people had to eat and ship them to other places. And so they resisted. So as a result of this caused the Civil War. And there was fighting, devastation all over the place because of this. Now, as a result of the Civil War, after 2 years of fighting, in about 1863, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And after his assassination, this really did raise a lot of havoc between the North and the South. And so these slaves, a lot of them, because they were slaves, they didn't make much money. And I heard speakers before me was talking about some of the wealth that comes from good business. And times has changed since the 1800s. And I'm sure glad of that. I'm probably you are too, I guess you should be. And so these, after the war, Congress authorized really 6 battalions, 6 units to be instituted for the protection and the settlement of this country after the war. They had the 9th and 10th Cavalry. They had the 24th and 25th Infantry. Cavalry, of course, was the horseback riders, and the infantry, of course, was foot soldiers. And so if you can just imagine, after all the turmoil of the Civil War, giving some 3 or 4 battalions guns, because the tension was so high between people, blacks and whites, and slave owners and slaves. And so Congress decided at that time to reduce the 6 units to 4. And the 4 units they reduced these troops to were the 9th and 10th Cavalry, the 9th and the 10th Cavalry. And so today I'm representing, as I wear this uniform, members of the 9th Cavalry. Now, a few things about the cavalry. These men signed on for 5 years for $13, Mr. Chapman. 5 years for $13 a month. Would you like to hire a bunch of people? I know. So times are different. The capsule now has rolled forward, and so it is far different. So I'd like to say just a few things about these heroic men who came and signed on for $13 a month for 5 years. Now, at the time, all these men were enlisted because at that time they had no black person had gone to the academy. And so there were no black officers. So these black men had to serve under white officers. And fortunately, no one wanted to do that because of the challenge. Most of these men were either runaway slaves or they were illiterate. Can you imagine trying to teach someone who's illiterate how to read and how to write? Quite a challenge. Not easy. So these men, in a very short period of time, became very heroic soldiers. They learned the skills of war. They were dedicated to what they had to do, and they did it with pride. It was not easy, but they did. Let me fast forward here a little bit to some of the battles that they fought. These men fought in Cuba. They were often called in to defend the western frontier. At that time, they were mostly engaged in building railroads. They protected settlers who lived out on the west. The Indians at that time were raising havoc with most of the folk that come that way. If you were traveling west, you could not travel alone. You had to travel in large numbers because of the threat from the Indian nation. And so these Buffalo Soldiers, as they were called, were assigned to this task to take care of the western frontier, some of the local places that we have here in the United States as well. But they had their tasks cut out for them. I will tell you how the Buffalo Soldiers got their name. They first were just called colored. That was a term, it's another terminology back in the time capsule. There were times when people, when you're in this country, if your skin was black, they referred to you as colored. You colored. And so these colored soldiers, as they were called, went to the western frontier. And while they were assigned to the western frontier, they were faced with Indian fighters. And these Indians were very vicious in their aggressiveness towards their territory. So they were very protective of their territory. And so these soldiers were assigned to protect the western frontier, to protect the railroads, and to do security in some places in the states. So their assignments were very diverse, but they could not follow written instructions because they were illiterate. They couldn't read. So there were those who were in the military at that time, and they taught those who could not read and write how to read and how to write, and they became very proficient and very good orderly organization. Now I'll tell you how the Buffalo Soldiers, how they got their name. The Indians, realizing that they had not seen blacks before in that part of the country, and so they associated the texture of the skin with the texture of the buffalo, and then they associated the viciousness to fight until you die with the buffalo. Now, any of you guys are hunters, and you know if you wound a buffalo, you're going to have to kill him. He struggles until the end. And so this is how these black soldiers got their name. Buffalo Soldiers was by the Plains Indians, who called them Buffalo Soldiers and dubbed that because of the nature of the buffalo. Now I'm going to read to you, my inspiration, let me say that while I'm here at this point. My inspiration came from really my mom, my sisters. I was born into a family of 8 people. And I have 8 sisters, but no brothers. And I'm the very last of our family. And so I can tell you that there's great inspiration that I got from my mom and from my sisters particularly, and most of them are professionals, and so my inspiration came from them. However, my military inspiration came from the draft. Back in the day, Brother Chapman, I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, they used to have a draft. And if you were not in college or in school, they drafted you. Now, everybody had to register. If you were 18, you had to register for the military. And at that time, it was Army. No other choice. And so after you registered, if you were in college, they would exempt you if you were in your junior year. But if you're a freshman or sophomore, you free game. You had to go. Well, after I registered, my number was getting pretty close. I was only in my sophomore year. And so I decided at that point I would jump the gun, go into the military, go into the Air Force, and I did, and I'm glad I did. Had a chance to, like I say, go a lot of places, do a lot of things. But I knew I did not want to be drafted. My first inspiration was to be a farmer. I'm used to farming. You grow stuff, wide open spaces, but and everything that you grew, you could use, you could eat practically. Good life, outdoors, good. So I said, I want to be a farm equipment demonstrator. Of all the things. But my counselor told me at that time, and I'm sure glad he did, he says, look, the farming is a dying industry. It is no more the small sharecrop grower. This is big, and you don't want to, I don't think there's a future in that for you, so you might want to change your mind. So then I had a cousin came home from the military, and he was all in his uniform, and seemed like the ladies were all, So I thought at that time, 18 years old, impressed. I said, well, maybe I should get the uniform, because he was so popular with. I said, but then I soon learned that was don't get you too far down the road. After a while, that it sort of wear off, and then you're out there. And so I decided to go into the military, and I'm glad I did. My military career, of course, accomplishes a lot of things for me. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that spoke before me at St. Philip's, that was my first school that I attended after I had gotten into the military. And then he mentioned also IWC. Now, there's a lot of IWC. They were graduates here from IWC. So she earned my BS degree from Incarnate Word, and that was my inspiration to go out and do bigger and better things. I realized that the world is so diverse, and if these poor men that I had studied about and that I represent wearing this uniform about, they had such hard time achieving, but they did not give up. They stayed with the things that were profitable and that would propel you into a position where you could have a better life. And so I want to read to you before I close here. I know I've been hitting back and forth on a few things here, but I realize the time constraints. I want to read to you before I let you out of the time zone. This is a news brief from the Daily Herald from 1867. This is about your city, San Antonio. And this is what it says. It says, now, 2 companies of colored troops, there's the word again, you all understand the word colored? 2 companies of colored troops, being the advance battalion under the command of Colonel Wesley Merritt, destined for the western frontier, passed through our city yesterday and encamped near the San Pedro Springs. That's near San Pedro College. We understand that there are about 2,000 troops in the battalion, and the balance will arrive in a day or two. These 2 companies presented a very tidy group of soldiers, and their appearance were mounted. They were mounted on superior horses. All of those which were in good condition, and all of them were very, very superb mounts. The condition, these men presented a good order as they passed through the city. And in the next 2 weeks, next month, We expect another contingency of these great men to pass through. So they had nothing but good things to say about the Buffalo Soldiers as they passed through San Antonio back in April the 5th of 1867. And so I stand proudly and recommend to you a great deal of appreciation and love for the men who wore this uniform, who were called the Buffalo Soldiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Andrews. You have a question, Brother Andrews? Brother Andrews. Brother Andrews. I have a question for you.
I'm not a historian, but to the best of my knowledge, no. No.
Okay, all right. Okay, and we'll move further. We're almost done, almost done. We have Corick was going to do Langston Hughes. Is he here? His father will do it. Okay, all right. Come on up quickly. Okay. We'll have Megan Merkel with Summer. Come on down.
Hello. Meghan Markle. When she married into the royal family, Markle instantly became one of the most famous black women in the world, and as such, the public has rained criticism upon her as part of an ongoing campaign of elitism, scrutiny, and prejudice.
Excellent. Next will be Trace Nipsey Hussle. He's not here? Okay. Last is Kobe Bryant. Everybody knows Kobe Bryant, who passed away. Information here, Kobe Bryant was an American professional basketball player, a shooting guard. Bryant entered the National Basketball Association directly from high school and played his entire 20-season professional career in the league with the Los Angeles Lakers. Bryant won 5 national championships, was an 18th all-time star, 15-time member of the All-NBA team, 12-time member of the All-Defensive team, was named the 2008 NBA Most Valuable Player and MVP, and was a 2-time NBA Final MVP winner, widely regarded as one of the greatest players of all time. He led the NBA in scoring during his 2 seasons, ranks 4th in the league's all-time regular season, scoring all-time post-session scoring list. The thing about Kobe Bryant, if you don't learn anything, is that his commitment to work hard. If you don't learn anything else, if you didn't hear anything else today, you got to be committed to whatever you do. And when you do those things, success will come. We'll go to our next speaker. Before that, we have the chorus going to sing us one more song.
Our selection will be Hush Children Hush.
Mic drop. Somebody's calling my name. Hush, children, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Somebody's calling my name, my Lord, Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Creeping in my room, oh Lordy. Someone sleeping in my room. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Troubles don't last, so wait, oh Lord. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Trouble don't last, so wait. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? Goodbye.
All right. Our last speaker for the afternoon is Ms. Taylor Mobley. Taylor is a Trinity University alumna who majored in communication with a minor in theater. Her passion for broadcast journalism led to her current role as the lead producer for the Daytime with Kimberly and Esteban morning show. In addition to producing, Taylor also has a love for fashion, which prompted the launch of Tailored for You. Tailored for You is a monthly fashion segment on the San Antonio Living morning show and has blossomed into an annual fashion show that not only makes fashion more accessible for men and women of all ages and body types, but also highlights different nonprofits in the San Antonio area. The Tailored for You fashion show has raised over $50,000 for the community in its 3 years of existence and won Fashion Event of the Year at the 2018 San Antonio Fashion Awards. Taylor loves Thai food, boxing, and reading. But more than anything, she is eager to continue growing her brand and creating positive change in the community. Ms. Taylor Mobley.
Hello? Can y'all hear me? Hello, how's everyone doing? Are we still awake? I know we're trying to get to room 12, y'all, I understand, so I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can. I really agreed with what Sister Taylor said in the sense that I feel like the dream becoming a reality is kind of an ongoing thing, and I don't think I've fully reached that yet, especially since I'm very new in my career, but I'm happy to share kind of my journey thus far, and hopefully that can help some of y'all this morning, or afternoon. It's the afternoon, isn't it? Yeah. So I realized going into Trinity University, where I went to school, that I loved theater, and that was something that I definitely wanted to study, but I didn't really know what I wanted to pair with it. And so I kind of just looked up my sophomore year, and I was in a lot of communication classes. I was working with the television station at school, and I was loving it. And so that's kind of what led me to major in communication and focus in broadcast journalism. And that also led to my internship at the news station that I currently work at, which is News 4 and Fox. I interned for the San Antonio Living Morning Show, and that was an experience that when I really realized what the dream was and that was something that I wanted to pursue. So I would encourage all of you, whoever said they might want to work at Whataburger or do whatever the case it is that you want to do, definitely find someone in that career and shadow them or get an internship so you can see if you actually like it. It's one thing to study it and read books about it and learn about whatever your career field is, but if you aren't there to experience it and see what it's like, you'll never know if you actually want to do that. So before you get into the job, make sure you get an internship or shadow someone so you can see if that's something you want to do. So I did that, I really enjoyed it, and after I graduated from Trinity, I started working at the news station as an associate producer. Does anyone know what a producer does? Anyone have a guess? Yes. Do. you're on the right track. Someone that tells you. Yes, okay, so she said someone that writes the script. That's true. So our job is basically to produce content, create content, and then put the show together and make it beautiful. So if someone will bring on a restaurant, they'll make a hamburger, and we'll make it fun. So it's a way to make content fun. It's a lifestyle show, so it's not news, it's not sad and depressing, and it's more of a chance for an hour that people can just feel uplifted and motivated and kind of an escape from the sad news that we normally are hearing. So that's kind of what a producer does. And going into the job, I knew that I would be behind the scenes producing, obviously, but I prayed a very specific prayer because I knew that while I wanted to learn producing, I also wanted to be on air. And so I would suggest for all of you to be really specific when you pray, because I was praying this and I wasn't sure if it would be a thing, and it just so happened that the girl who was doing like the social media host of the day went on maternity leave literally the day I got there. And so they kind of put that job onto me, and I was really grateful because it was God kind of opening a door that I prayed for it to be open. And so definitely be specific when you pray and just kind of say yes when opportunities present themselves, because you never know what will happen. So producing was great and I really enjoyed it, but as a producer, your job is, like I said, to create content. So they were kind of encouraging me as the new producer, okay, what are you gonna bring to the table? What ideas do you have? What are you gonna do? My first idea was food, because I love to eat. So at first I wanted a segment that kind of related to restaurants in town, eats on the street. Like I had all these ideas, and then I was like, you know what, I don't need free food every day of my life. Let me do something a little more productive. I also kind of what prompted Tailored for You. So Tailored for You, as Brother Raleigh kind of already said, but it was basically a way for me to kind of change the way we viewed fashion. In the media in 2016, like 4 or 5 years ago, I noticed that you see what the trends are, but you don't always see how they're attainable for your age or your body type or whatever the case may be. The models we used to see in the media were a very specific type that didn't really look like me. And I wanted to change that. So that's kind of how Tailored for You came about. I would showcase a different boutique or designer every month, and then 3 different models, one model in her 20s, one model in their 30s or 40s, and one in her 50s, to show how the trends that we were talking about could be tailored to different people of ages and body types and races and everything. So these are an example of segments that I've done, and when I think about usually, of course, I mean my parents, yes, church mentors or mentors in the workplace, all people that have helped, but I want to encourage us also to remember the people that kind of listen to our dreams, the people that support you along the way, the people that you don't normally think about but are definitely a key part in making the dream a reality. For example, all of these models, I don't have money to pay them. They kind of just volunteer their time. I would pitch the segment. They would say, you know what, we believe in that. That sounds great. I love what you're doing. And kind of rally behind it. And that still means so much to me, because when you're kind of navigating through your dream, you don't always know if it's going to be received well, or if there's a place for it, or if people will believe in it, or if it's just you. And so for people to kind of help you with models, it's the boutiques and designers donating the clothes for me to use. All of those people, and even people that encourage you, that, you know, if you're selling a product, if they buy it, if they share it, if they talk about it, if they buy a ticket, all of those moments, not to overlook in this regard, because that is part of your dream becoming a reality, people kind of rallying behind you. So that's super important. But in regards to creating your own lane and kind of figuring out thing deter you from what your dream is. So let's go back. I keep saying the Whataburger example, but that's just on my mind right now. If both of y'all want to work for Whataburger, the way that you work for Whataburger won't be the same way that she works for it, or the way that you go about that dream won't be the same way another person does. So just because it might have already been done, or someone else is interested in fashion and has another fashion segment, they're not going to do it the same way that I do it, or the way that I interpret it. So don't let other people doing the same thing deter you from whatever your dream may be and the path that you're taking, because everyone's journey is going to be different. When it comes to the dream, though, okay, so figured out the dream, you know what you want to do, you're set on the goal. So first and foremost, my why is what I'm doing pleasing to God, and is that going to glorify Him? So that should be it. That should be everybody's why. And if that's good, great. But you also want to find out why the dream is a dream for you and why you're passionate. So for me, this segment was going great. I was enjoying it. It was entertaining, I guess. But it wasn't really doing anything. It wasn't doing good, in my opinion. And I wanted to find a way for it to give back. So that's kind of how the Tailored for You fashion show came about. I was venting to my sister about, like, I don't know how to take this segment. I don't know what to do. Why don't you do a fashion show? And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not happening. I went to sleep, I woke up, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have a fashion show, and we're just gonna make it happen, yeah? So I pitched it to my boss. She loved the idea. I told a friend who is now on my team for the fashion show. She was more excited than I was. So again, rallying, having people around you that believe in you, supporting you, and kind of make you want to be better is so important, especially when you're kind of navigating through uncharted territory. So the fashion show came about, and I really just feel like a purpose that God has for me is to give back. And so that is what this was doing for the community, because the fashion show is for a different nonprofit every year. So the first year was for Dress for Success. The second year was for Haven for Hope. And this is my team. And then the third year that just happened was for Threads. So again, it's important when obstacles come your way, which they will, and I won't get into every obstacle that I face because there have been a lot, but it's important to remember in those moments when someone says you can't do it, when someone says, I don't want to model, or a boutique drops out, a designer, say, okay, but I'm doing this for San Antonio Threads, or I'm doing this for Dress for Success. I would always remember my why so that I would not get discouraged. I would take a breath and kind of keep pushing forward, because it's important for you to have the dream, and that's great. But if you don't know why you're doing it, then when something kind of takes you off track, you won't be able to recover. And my last piece of advice is just coming to church on Sundays has never been something that I really had to think about. It's just the norm for me, and it's what I'm used to. But I got to a point, probably my first 2 years actually working, so I guess 2016, 2017, I was getting really just discouraged, and I didn't feel completely fulfilled with just coming to church because I wasn't doing anything on my own. So I actually started a scripture journal. So every morning I'll just write one scripture that I can meditate on throughout the day, because I wanted to kind of be in the Word. A scripture journal, or even just a notebook where you write scriptures that are important to you and meditate on them. That's super important, and it's helped me so much just to remain grounded. So when things come my way and things don't go right, I can kind of look back on those and meditate on them. And so this is my favorite scripture. Just the idea of the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your mind and your heart, has got me through some days. Okay? So that's just something that I always meditate on. But I just want to encourage you, yes, find your dream, find your path, but understand that the value and the power in creating your own path, and then remembering your why and staying in the Word. I think that you will do just fine. So thank you.
We have certificates we want to give to you. We have Mr. Angelo Haygood, Mrs. Stacy Taylor, Miss Stacy Taylor, Miss Barbara Rankins. Come to the front, stand up front, right in front of me in the podium area. Mr. Chapman, Mr. Hart Andrews. I'm sorry, Ms. Taylor Mobley. Ms. Taylor Mobley. And we'll get Mr. Brownlee his. Let's give all of our participants, speakers, a round of applause. All of our kids, we want to give them a round of applause. Thank all of the individuals that are involved. We had individuals that prepared food. We want y'all to hang around for a little bit for the food. We got black-eyed peas, okra and tomatoes, whole cakes and bread, collard greens and turkey, liver and onions, candied yams, and pound cake. You can't miss that. And we have horseback riding for the kids. All that work you did, we got a little horseback riding for you outside. We want to thank Brother Patrick for putting that together, Sister Bolden for helping to coordinate, and everyone who is involved. We want to thank everyone. Let us stand for one song, we'll be done. I'm glad I know you. I'm glad you know me. I know me. I know me. Oh, we praise our God. Our God. Our God. Oh, we're one big family. Oh, we lift our hands to reach the sky. And I'm so glad, so glad, so glad. Are you gay? Your life. Okay, you're dismissed. Again, food is to your left, room 12. Help yourself. Also, horseback riding for the little ones. Thank everyone.